Let's get more now with political analyst Klaus Jurgens joining us from Ankara here in Turkey. Klaus, it's always good to have you on this news hour. Many of the Mediterranean countries are getting the majority of migrants on first arrival, and that's based purely on geography. Now, these countries say they're bearing the brunt of the crisis, but is it only the Mediterranean nations who are really pushing for reforms, or are there other countries in the EU doing the same?
Well, hello, good evening. Of course, honor, pleasure always be back on your program. Now, I prepared three very brief points. Of course, by sheer geography, the Mediterranean nations, assuming that the Balkan route is no longer the real viable one, of course, they are faced by the largest, biggest number of arrivals in need, fleeing from countries where they do not see any future or are even persecuted. Of course, now the Mediterranean is the hot pick, and Italy has become, in particular Lampedusa, one of those centers where I listened to the mayor in Lampedusa recently, and he said, we can't just do it anymore ourselves. We are not anti-migrants, but please help us that they are, in a way I never would describe this word, distributed. You can't distribute humans, but I'm really not able to find another word. To reallocate, to relocate, perhaps that would be the best. No, it is a task for EU 27. And I think those who say, we don't want any more migrants, we don't want any more migrants. And Poland recently came up, I think, in this regard, and Hungary. And I think Brussels must come up with one-way strategy to say, whoever arrives on our shores, and if the European Union project has still any validity, we have to reallocate, to relocate according to resources, countries, populations, job opportunities, social welfare systems. We can't just leave the Italians and a couple of other countries to take care of them. So solidarity would be the key word. The second one, not only helping those in need who already arrive on European shores, but instead of setting up detention centers or migration centers in those countries where they actually hail from, re-establish a proactive development, humanitarian, financial, economic, educational aid policy that those countries where the people are fleeing from actually one day might find a future by themselves. This is my biggest concern.
Klaus, sorry, just before we run out of time, I want to talk about countries like Hungary and Poland in particular, because they're reluctant or outright refusing to take any refugees or migrants. And it does seem to be that they don't want undocumented migrants coming from Africa, the Middle East, Asia, which was different when the war in Ukraine broke out, because they opened their countries to refugees coming from Ukraine. Seems quite hypocritical at this point.
It is hypocritical and absolutely double-faced, double-standard. Yes, you open your doors to one nation only because you think there is a war situation. Of course there is a war situation, but you have a wider political spectre against Vladimir Putin and Russia. And then all other migrants are basically second class. We don't want them. We don't take care of them. No way that they come in. I think Poland and Hungary and a number of other countries, unfortunately, must really come to one realization. We are member of the European Union. We financially, dramatically, drastically, sensationally have benefited from being a member state. It is good for our country, for our democracy. Maybe in other countries, this democracy is not as of yet perfect as it should be. Help those people in need, and the European Union will become a role model for solidarity.
It will be very interesting to see what happens from this Med9 meeting. Lots of arrivals taking place right now in Malta, and how the EU's migrant policy is going to change. Klaus Jurgens, as always, thank you very much for your time.
Absolute pleasure.